Well, welcome. Here's our session on Grand Central Dispatch. Seems like questions about Grand Central Dispatch crop up fairly often in RubyMotion, and there's some very specific reasons about that. A couple of tricky things, so I'm just going to cover off a couple of quick things to get you started. I could not possibly cover everything about Grand Central Dispatch in a quick video, but this one will get you started. So let's just see. Now the Apple documentation for Grand Central Dispatch is quite clear and talks about using, all these things that I'm afraid look a lot more like C than they do like Objective-C. And that's where one of the problems comes in. Now, when you look here, okay, there's documentation, but if you look for RubyMotion documentation for Grand Central Dispatch, you'll find a big fat nothing. Actually, that's not entirely true. There definitely is something. Unfortunately, it's hidden here over under MacRuby. Yep, in the MacRuby wiki, there is some very full documentation on the dispatch module, and this is basically the dispatch module in RubyMotion. And in fact, the dispatch queue class is mostly what you need to know about. You have your 3 types of queues: your main queue, where everything executes serially on your application's main thread. This is where you actually need to do things like UI updates have to occur on the main queue. And then there's concurrent queues and other serial queues. And you can choose to make those yourself. And you can make as many queues as you want to, but I'd stick to as few as you actually need. Dispatch queue new method gives you a serial queue. Dispatch queue concurrent method gives you a concurrent queue. And you give it a name. That's mostly what you need to know about. And everything else is covered down here on this page. I'm not going to go through it. You can just go here, look for MacRuby and Grand Central Dispatch, and it'll take you right to it. Now, the next most difficult thing is when you are back at the Apple documentation and you're looking at some part of the SDKs that need to use a dispatch queue. For example, here in the AV capture video data output class, there is an instance method called set sample buffer delegate with queue. And it actually needs you to pass in a queue. However, if you just pass in one of those queues that you created with dispatch queue or the main queue that you get back from dispatch queue, your code's going to silently fail and you won't know why. And that's because of this tricky thing right here. It needs something of a type called dispatch QT. And if we follow that, we'll discover, and you can keep following it down, but basically this is, a struct, a C struct in fact. And that, of course, is what causes the problem because you have a dispatch queue and not this C struct. Okay, so you need the dispatch queue. So where do you go? RubyMotion has a nice little tutorial here, and it's got a nice section on Grand Central Dispatch. And I love this little tutorial because it covers kind of your main things that you need to know. 1, how to run stuff asynchronously on the main thread to do your UI updates. 2, how to do some code that runs only once, which, by the way, is the way to create a singleton. And last but not least, how to get an object of type dispatchQt, which is to say, on the Q object that you have, you use the method dispatchObject to get one of those. Ta-da! That simple. So anytime you are using one of these SDK methods that needs a dispatchQt, you call dispatchObject on your queue that you have, and that's all you need to get it working. Another thing I'll point out, it's not just, Apple code that needs these things. Here's a really popular framework, the XMPP framework that you use to do messaging. Lots of people use it. It's got like 5,555 stars on GitHub. So yeah, popular. And if you look up their documentation, you will see that they have delegate methods as well that need a delegate queue, and that delegate queue needs to be a dispatchQt type. So I think that is about all that I had to say. If you have any other questions about this, come and join us in the Motioneers Slack group. And if you need to know anything more about RubyMotion, come on into the Windex School, where the Motion in Motion videos will shortly be added. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.